It's hard to say when I started seeing them, but they watch me at night. At first, it was just one. I live in a single dorm room at a large university. Coming from a small suburb 40 minutes away, the transition has been, admittedly, tough. I have trouble sleeping at night. I can't seem to put my phone down, and when I manage to, horrible thoughts begin to fill my head. I imagine hurting people who have minorly inconvenienced me in any way, even the people I love. When I close my eyes, I imagine failing on stage, not turning in homework, and living alone for the rest of my life. Not only that, but I hear conversations I had throughout the day, things people said that hurt me, things I said that might have hurt them. You get the idea. In addition to this, my dorm gets terribly hot during the nighttime. No matter how many blankets I kick off or layers I strip off, I still feel as if I'm bathing in my own sweat. Needless to say, it's hard to sleep. It was just a night like any other when I saw her. I was rolling around, trying to find peace within my own mind when, just for a second, I opened my eyes. Standing in the middle of my room was a woman, looking me in the eyes from 3 feet away. I quickly shut my eyes and rolled over to the side of my bunk facing the wall. I threw sheets over my naked body to gain some sense of security, like a child hiding under the blankets from the monster under the bed. I think it should be said that I have a very active imagination, and this wouldn't have been the first time I thought I'd seen someone while I was sleeping. Oftentimes, a hanging coat can become a tall, brooding man when it's in the shadows. There was one time, during a minor bout of sleep paralysis, that I thought Ninja, yes, the Fortnite streamer, was watching me when I woke up. This night terror would have just been like any other, if it had been gone by the time I opened my eyes to check on it again. Still standing in the middle of my room, it continued staring at me. This time, I stared back, sizing my stalker up. She must have been at least 7.5 feet tall, as she was on the same eye level as I was on the top bunk. Her body, if you can even call it that, was extremely slender, and a uniform gray color the whole way through. She wore no clothes, but had none of the regular human anatomy. Her body was similar to Gumby, except her face was different. Her face was that of a normal human, but something felt off about it. It reminded me of the trailer for the live-action adaptation of Cats. "Hello?" I whispered. Nothing. I continued looking at her, hoping she would disappear, but she didn't. She continued staring blankly back at me. I decided that if she wasn't gone in 5 minutes, I would get a drink of water from my mini-fridge and investigate. Needless to say, she was still doing her thing as I staggered down the ladder. I went to my mini-fridge and pulled out a water bottle. I tipped my head back and down the whole thing with my eyes closed. Water dripped down my chest as I chugged the cold, refreshing beverage. When I brought the bottle away from my lips, I opened my eyes and sighed. She was still there, staring at me. I suddenly felt very naked, so I threw on a hoodie and sweats to cover up my nudity. I needed to see if I was dreaming. I stepped forward toward her. She seemed to grow as I inched closer. Her slender appearance towered over me, something I am not used to. I slowly reached my hand out to touch her hand. When I made contact with her skin, I was surprised at how warm she was. Her appendage felt as warm as a loaf of bread that had left the oven mere minutes ago. The consistency was that of an eraser, pliable, but barely so. I was suddenly overcome with fright as the reality of my situation came to fruition. There was another living entity in my room that was staring at me. I needed to get help. But from whom? As you can probably guess what happened next, I sat down on the futon and texted my friend David, who lived in a single room down the hall from mine. After I convinced him I wasn't kidding, he begrudgingly texted back that he'd be over. Just to test that she wouldn't disappear when the door opened, I walked over and opened it to make sure. She still stood there, watching me. David arrived at my doorway, and I knew immediately by the look on his face that I was in trouble. As I stood, still looking the strange woman in the eyes, David cussed me out sleepily and walked back to his room. David couldn't see her. My air conditioning unit broke when he showed up. He was less smooth than her, less tall, more wrinkly. He had the stature of a primate, but the loose skin and spindly hair of a corpse. He, too, was the gray color of the female. However, he was not as quiet as her. His heavy, low-pitched breathing massaged my spine and made the hair on my arms stand up. While the girl exclusively stared at me, the man mostly stared at the carpet, occasionally slowly turning to look at me. He, too, felt the way that the female figure had. I tried to get another friend in my hall, Franklin, to see him, but that turned out just as well as the first time. At this point, word had gotten out that I was crazy, which didn't help me in my pursuit of making friends. People veered around me as I passed them in the hallway, afraid that I would somehow infect them with my hysteria. With each subsequent day that passed, another figure showed up in my room. The fat one, the baby, the family, and many more began to make my room feel claustrophobic at nighttime. With no air conditioning, the room got hotter each night another person's body heat was added to the mix. As I drifted further and further from the people in my dorm hall, I got to know the figures. The tall one's name was Rose. She didn't tell me that, but I know. She's married to Glenn. All of the other figures are her children, she tells me. She didn't actually tell me, but I know. She lets me know that it's okay that I'm skipping my classes. It's okay that I'm failing. I know I'll always have her and her family. She doesn't hug me back, but I feel her warmth every night. As the number of figures in my single room begins to hit double digits, the figures have started piling on top of each other. Their small, individual noises accumulate into an orchestra of breathing, groaning, and snoring. My room has begun to grow a bit loud, but I was told college parties could be that way. That's what it is, a party, with all of my new friends. They love me. I hug them. I kiss them. I love them. What it's like to finally be loved. They watch me while I sleep. Our secret I will keep.